What's up guys, it's James here, and in today's video, I'm gonna be answering some of your guys' most common questions as Airbnb and short-term rental investors. I've got a few of them on my phone here, and so I'm gonna be answering some of the most common questions that I get asked about investing in short-term rentals. Now, before we dive into that, I do wanna remind you guys that there's a free training linked in the description down below. It's a brand new free training that I just recently put together, talking about all the tips and strategies you need, the three crucial components to successfully investing in short-term rental properties. So if you've been interested in thinking about investing in Airbnbs and short-term rental properties, and you want to access some of the incredible cash flow and incredible returns that come with short-term rental investing, then I highly recommend you check out the link in the description down below and check out that free training. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into these questions here. So to start with, a pretty common one that I get, a pretty standard one in a lot of different forms of real estate investing, is what's a good Airbnb cap rate? Now, for those of you who don't know, cap rate is basically your NOI divided by your purchase price, your net operating income divided by your purchase price. So it's kind of a benchmark that people use to determine like what is the return on investment without factoring in any of the individual expenses that one property owner might have versus another, because people are going to get different mortgage rates, people are going to put different percentages down. So if we're comparing cash on cash or things like that, it really depends on the investor, right? It depends on how much you're putting down, what the percentage rate is on your interest for your mortgage. So those kind of things just really kind of influence what those returns are going to look like. Whereas cap rate is a lot less it's a lot less impacted, or not at all impacted, I should say, by the person that's buying the property. Now, that being said, my answer to this is not one that a lot of people are going to like. It's that honestly, cap rate is really not an important metric to look at. It's good to look at to kind of analyze a market overall if you're looking at doing more kind of zoomed out macro analysis on different real estate investments, but really just not a useful metric if you're someone that's actually looking to invest into a property for a short-term rental. Now, what you really want to be looking at, and I'll tell you how I do my analysis, is I like to look at, number one, when I'm just kind of browsing properties and looking at a high level, is I want to make sure that I can generate really conservatively at least $10,000 a year per $100,000 that I'm investing in the property. That's gross, right? So if I, basically take the purchase price, divide it by 10, that's how much I want to make sure that I can make on total gross revenue for the property in a worst case scenario. Really, I want to be doubling that. But as a worst case scenario, I want to make sure that if everything goes really poorly, that I'm going to at least have the purchase price divided by 10 in terms of just annual cash flow, or annual revenue, I should say, for the property. So if I'm buying a $500,000 property, I want to make sure that I believe it can, even in a worst case scenario, bring in $50,000 a year. Once I've met that criteria, and I also have a number of criteria for things I'm looking for in terms of the type of property, the size, and that's all based on what properties I know in my market that I'm investing in are going to perform the best and have the most potential for me to improve their performance. Once it passes that initial filter, that's when I dive into a much more detailed analysis, way more detailed, where I run all the numbers a lot more granularly and really run some accurate worst case, more average, and then best case scenario projections. And that's where I'm looking for, honestly, the number I care the most about is the cash on cash return, because all the other ways that I'm getting ROI, appreciation, equity, those are great, but they're not going to pay the bills. So I need to make sure that the cash on cash is strong, because that's what's going to pay the bills, and that's what's going to put more money in the bank account that I can then use right away to go and, whether it's buy stuff or whether I want to invest in more properties, which is what I mainly do with the money personally. So that's really what I can use that for. I can pull out some equity, or I can access some of that appreciation if I do a refinance down the road, but that's a lot more involved of a process than just going into my bank account and pulling the money out. So cash on cash is the number I look at the most. And then before that, I look at a more high level view, but cap rate just honestly isn't an important metric to look at. It's just not that relevant. And then where should I invest? That's another question I get asked really often. It came up a lot. What market should I invest in? And that depends on a number of different factors. Number one, you want to look at what markets do you want to invest in. I personally recommend, one of the great things about investing in short-term rentals is the ability to then use the property as a vacation home as well. So it's cool to be able to own properties in awesome locations that you can actually get away to. So that's one thing, is if you want to actually own properties in different places, that should be a driving force in terms of where you buy. Another thing is like, let's say, okay, you're just looking for the absolute maximum return on your investment. Well, then you can, go in different places, but you have to decide, is there a specific type of property that you want? Because if you want a specific type of property, then in that case, you would have to decide, okay, I'm going to focus on this specific area if I want to maximize my returns. And probably the best way to say this is, if you want to have a small 1-bedroom apartment, then that small 1-bedroom apartment is probably going to do a lot better in Miami or in Toronto than it is going to do, out in the boonies. So that's a factor. But if you're open to it, then, Miami versus the boonies, you can get some really great ROI in the boonies. You're just gonna need a different type of property to do it. So where should I invest? It really depends. It depends on who the person is. I personally am investing just outside Toronto in cottage country. That does really, really well, but there's tons of different places all around North America and the whole rest of the world that do really well. You just need to know what type of property to get in a different location. Is Superhost status important? This is something that I get asked a lot. A lot of hosts, a lot of people that are investing in short-term rental properties, they have this idea that they have to get 5-star reviews, they have to be Superhost status, and the reality is it's not that important. We don't have Superhost status right now on one of our properties, and it's doing incredibly well. The property, we just launched it 3 months ago, so we don't have Superhost status yet, and we're already booked at just shy of $90,000 for the year on a property that we bought for $520,000. And it's only been up for 3 months. So that's really, really incredible. Not Superhost. It hasn't been getting all 5-star reviews. Yes, we absolutely strive to get great reviews, but every time we get a negative review, that's amazing. That's actually really valuable. A lot of hosts hate that and they fear it. It's actually really valuable feedback because it tells us how we can add more value to the next guest and improve the performance of the listing. So super, super valuable. And Superhost status, honestly, we've done a lot of studies on it, doesn't really impact your performance that much. It's great if you can get it, but not worth losing a bunch of sleep over. What should I do about X guests? I put this one down because a lot of people reached out and had questions, what should I do about this situation? What should I do about that situation? My guest is doing this, my guest is doing that. And rather than trying to answer every individual different scenario, I thought it'd be more helpful to answer it with the framework that I use to figure out what to do in a specific scenario where, okay, the guest is asking for this, or they're saying this, or they're doing this. What do I do? And ultimately, I like to look at it first and foremost. I like to just kind of put myself in their shoes and say, what would I do? What would I want? What would I expect if I were in their shoes? So this is a really good way to make sure that you're doing a good job of customer service, but not bending over backwards for just crazy, unreasonable people, which you will come across from time to time. There's some people that have crazy expectations. One of the people that was asking this question is, they're asking, what should I do? My guest just messaged me and said that they want a discount because it's supposed to rain this weekend and they had booked for this weekend. Well, what would I do if I actually look at it and I go, if I were in that guest situation, yeah, sure, maybe I'd be upset that it was about to rain, but realistically, I wouldn't be expecting any kind of a discount for that. So I think it would be totally reasonable to just say, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about it, because in that case, the guest, I think, is being unreasonable if they actually expect more than that. And it'd be above and beyond to just, not give them a discount, but give them a little gift, or make sure there was a board game there for them, or do something as sort of a token of, hey, I'm sorry that happened, but here's, hopefully we can make the best of it for you and enjoy this weekend. Maybe like a bottle of wine so they can enjoy it inside. That's what I would do, because that, to me, is not something that they would expect, but it'd be going above and beyond for them and doing something really, really great for them. So either one, I think, is totally reasonable, but I personally would try to go that extra mile for the guest. And then if someone is asking something where it is going to cost me a lot of money, they're saying, hey, the air conditioning is broken at the property, then I'm going to go, okay, well, what would I want done in that situation? If I'm in a property in the middle of summer, the AC is broken, I want to be put up at another hotel, at another place to sleep, because I'm not going to sleep in 30-degree weather. I think that's pretty crazy. If they can't get someone by, if they can get someone by, great. I would want them to just get someone by as quickly as possible, fix it. If they can't, I want to be put up at another hotel, and I want that hotel to be paid for, and I want to be refunded. I'm just being honest. That's what I would want, because frankly, it's really inconvenient for me to have to then grab all my stuff, pack up, go somewhere for a night. I at least want that other night to be comped or something. And I want to be refunded for the night that I'm not at this property that I wanted to be at because I'm not actually staying there. So I think that's a totally reasonable request for or expectation for a guest to have. And that's what I would do for the guest in that scenario. And the big reason for that is because just, it's what I would want done for me. And I know that it's going to cost me money. Like I'm going to have to book them a hotel room or whatever for a few $100s. I'm going to lose a few $100 more on that, refund that I'm going to give them. But at the end of the day, I'm doing the right thing. That's going to really reward me long term. Yeah, I'm going to lose a couple $100s right now, and that sucks. But I know that long term, it's going to pay off way more than that because I'm going to actually be able to now, get this property, get this review really good, make sure that it goes off smoothly. That's going to make sure that I get more bookings in the future, and I'm going to make that money back long term. So I have a few more questions on here. I know this video is getting quite long at this point, so I'm going to cut it off here. If you want another video like this, if you liked this, if you have other questions that you want addressed in future videos, then just post in the comments, let me know. If you liked this and you want more videos like this, then make sure you hit that thumbs up to let me know so that I can see, okay, this is something that you guys like and you want more content like this. And again, if you have any other questions you want me to answer in future videos, just let me know in the comment section down below. And with all that said, I just want to remind you guys one last time that there is a free training down in the description down below so you can check it out and learn exactly how to invest successfully in short-term rental properties. So if you want to learn exact step-by-steps of everything you need to do to be a successful short-term rental investor, then I highly recommend checking that training out in the description down below. It's completely free to check out. So again, check that out and I'll see you in the next video.